What up, guys? It's Dom, and welcome back to another movie review. Today we are going over and ranking Joker Folie à Deux. Joker Folie à Deux, released in 2024, written and directed by Todd Phillips. Arthur Fleck is institutionalized at Arkham, awaiting trial for his crimes as Joker. While struggling with his dual identity, Arthur not only stumbles upon true love, but also finds the music that's always been inside him. I cannot express enough how much of a disappointment that this sequel really is. Compared to the first movie, I can't believe that this is the direction they went in. And with so much potential too, I saw what they were trying to do with the movie. They just did not do it right. But either way, let's get right into the 10 essential aspects of a movie. The first essential aspect is plot. So here's the thing about the plot. Up until the end, it had me. I thought it was pretty good. It was in the general direction where I thought we were going to go with this sequel. It just wasn't exactly how I expected it. And of course, then the end just ruined the rest for me. So it's really hard to say. I mean, because overall the plot was pretty good, especially for it being a musical, which usually in musicals, the plot isn't as vital as the singing and the music and the expression. But I still feel like it played a big part in this, which is good because that's what I wanted. I didn't think this was even going to be a musical at first. And that is kind of that's the main bad part of the movie, was the fact that it's a musical, which sucks because that's the whole movie. But the ending was really the worst part, and that's really what ruined the rest of the movie for me. I think that the parts that weren't musical, that were actually just regular plot of just Arthur Fleck in the prison and then throughout trial, that wasn't the worst, especially when he met Harley or Lee Quinzel. I thought that all of that was really good. It's just when they suddenly broke out into song or the ending where that kind of flopped for me. The second essential aspect is attraction. So clearly in this movie, the part that they wanted to make the most entertaining was the singing and the dancing and the actual musical part. And that's fine, but I feel like they didn't do that right either. I thought there was a handful, maybe 2 or 3 actually, of songs that I really enjoyed, and I'm glad that they were in it. If they had those 3, removed the rest, or maybe had just like 1 or 2 others, honestly, the movie wouldn't be as bad. But because they just full forced so many musical numbers into this movie, it ruined it. It ruined it because as much as this version of Joker is like in the first movie, he was dancing on the stairs. He is a musical kind of guy. It's just to an extent. Like this is like completely just full on High School Musical level of musicals. And I did not like that. So for me, it wasn't that entertaining other than the main parts that weren't singing. Those were fine and I did enjoy some of them. But for most of the movie, since it was a lot of singing, I did not find it entertaining. The third essential aspect is theme. This might be a stretch, but I feel like the theme of this movie is just always be yourself. Don't put on a mask and, well, literally in this case, but figuratively, don't put on a mask and just stop being yourself around people. Because if the people that love you actually just love the mask you put on, that's not going to be a happy life. And that's really what I think the theme is of this movie. There's a lot of scenes that actually express that in this movie. So I feel like it has to be the theme, but it still could be kind of a stretch. The fourth essential aspect is dialogue. I feel like the dialogue in this movie wasn't as good as the first one, but it wasn't terrible. Now, for the little dialogue there was, because I'm not counting the singing as dialogue, but for the little dialogue there was between characters, it was pretty good. I thought it definitely felt real, and I still got that Joker vibe like he got in the first movie. It just wasn't to that extent. I feel like maybe that's just because there wasn't as much of it, or maybe they did something differently. I'm not sure. It just didn't feel as good as the first movie. But I'm not saying it's bad. It's still pretty good. The fifth essential aspect is acting. So when it comes to acting, obviously I have to mention Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, as Arthur Fleck. He did a fantastic job in the first one. And honestly, he did a good job in this one too. I just feel like it's not his fault. It's the pieces that were given to him that he had to work with. I feel like he did fine in the musical sections, but the main parts I'm really focusing on here are the parts that aren't singing, the actual main plot points that matter more. And I thought that was really good. I thought what he did, he still incorporated everything he did in the first movie. He still did as good of a job. It's just he wasn't given as good lines and opportunities for improvisation and just in general scenes that he can really show how good of an actor he is with this character. Because he did a lot of improv in the last one that made the movie even better. But he didn't have options to do that in this one because it's just the writers. And obviously we have Lady Gaga as Lee Quinzel, Harley Quinn, and she did a great job in this. I actually really liked her character. I liked her version of Harley Quinn. And obviously when it came to the musical part, it's Lady Gaga, so of course she did a good job with the singing. But again, I feel like with the pieces she was given, she could have done a better job. So it's not her fault, again. It's just the fact that this movie is a musical that's really ruining a lot of these characters for me because they have such high potential, but they just don't get to show it. So overall, those two actually did a really good job especially as being the main two characters. I just feel like they would have done better if they had an option to. The sixth essential aspect is cinematography. Off the bat, we know cinematography is about emotion, and when it comes to the emotional value in this, it's a very, very hit or miss movie because there is some parts that would tug at my heartstrings completely that don't, just because it all of a sudden turned into a musical number, okay? If there's a really sad scene in your movie and you want the audience to feel it, don't have the dying guy start singing. It doesn't work. It doesn't help. So please, for the love of God, don't do that. It makes the movie so much worse. It ruined a lot of the movie for me when that happened. And it happened a few times too. Something crazy is going to happen, something that can bring a lot of emotion from the audience, and then they start singing. Like, what? What are we doing here? Like, I get it. You want it to be a musical because he has this new profound sense for music because it helps him really control between the two sides of him, the Joker and Arthur side. Like, I get that. So sure, break into music numbers sometimes, but just don't do it at vital moments of the story. Do it just as a filler if you need to. Just don't ruin the story with it like you did. You just did. But overall, the emotional value had a lot of potential. Again, ruined by music. I know I'm crapping all over the musical part of this, but it really bothers me. It had no reason of being a musical. And I know they were trying to do something different, but still. And when it came to actual visuals, I thought the visuals were good. I loved the intro bit. I'm not going to spoil anything about the movie, but I loved the intro to the whole movie. I thought that looked awesome, and it actually made sense for a later part of the story where it actually explains that. So I like that they added that in. And also, even though the musical numbers weren't awesome, they at least looked good. They were choreographed well. There was the few songs that I actually did like that came through in the musical looked really good as well. I think that's why, because they caught my eye. I really didn't care for the song. I really cared more about what it looked like. I think that's why I really liked those more. But so yeah, cinematography for visuals wise was honestly pretty good, but the emotions where you lose me because you ruined it. The seventh essential aspect is editing. So this movie is 2 hours and 18 minutes long. That is way too long. For a musical, I feel like that is way, way, way too long. I get that it took long to finish the song to move on to the next scene, but that's the problem. Like, I don't remember how long Joker 1 was, but even if it was 2 hours and 18 minutes, that makes sense. There's a lot of character development going on. There's a lot of interesting stories within the stories. So it makes sense to have that a longer movie so you actually have time to develop the characters, to develop the plot, to pace it well, but you also have enough time to actually get the audience invested. Now in this one, the audience didn't get invested because it was too long. Because when it comes to the plot, it's probably like half of the movie, maybe 3/4 max, but the rest is just singing. So if you just had it at like an hour and 45, an hour and 50, that could even be more manageable because you don't have to wait around as long. This was the first time that I actually was sad when I thought something was the ending and it wasn't the ending, because I just wanted it to be over. That's how bad it got towards the end, and that's not how you pace a movie well. I should have been invested in the movie right until the end, and then it's over. But no, I got invested in the movie and then I just stopped. It just died off, and I feel like that happened with a lot of people as well, which is why the reviews for this are going to be so low. But Yeah, I feel like the editing was not ideal. The eighth essential aspect is soundtrack. So obviously, this is a musical, so it has a soundtrack. The whole darn thing is basically a soundtrack. And what the problem was is that I didn't like the fact that it was a musical, so I focused on the plot points. So I didn't really focus on a lot of the songs. Some of them were okay, I remember. Some of them were bad. There was a few that were great. And I just don't remember any of the songs because I was just ticked off that there were songs. But overall, for actual music, I thought some of them were catchy, some of them were fun to listen to. The visuals is really more what got me in there when it came to the actual singing. But overall, it's a pretty good soundtrack for a musical, especially, I guess. But I just still wish it wasn't in there. The ninth essential aspect is directing. So the director of this movie is Todd Phillips, and it was his job to take these previous 8 essential aspects, put them together to make a movie that's worth watching. And I'm sorry, but you disappointed me, Todd. This movie is definitely not worth watching. I at least don't think so. I feel like I wish I just watched the first one and they just never made the sequel. I would have been perfectly fine with how good that first one was if they didn't ruin it with this one. And that's kind of on you, Todd, because you previously directed 13 other movies, and they were Hated Gigi Allen and the Murder Junkies, Frat House, Bittersweet Motel, Road Trip, Old School, Starsky and Hutch, School for Scoundrels, The Hangover, Due Date, The Hangover Part 2, The Hangover Part 3, War Dogs, and Joker. And you previously directed Joker, so why are you, after knowing how well you did there, why are you changing stuff up and just ruining the movie? You had such a good puzzle piece that could have worked, and instead you threw it away and tried to force a different one in. It doesn't need to be done. I feel like this movie should have been him in Arkham Asylum, his trial, him breaking out, and then becoming the Clown Prince of Crime. That would have been a great timeline to continue on, even if you don't see him become the Clown Prince of Crime. Set it up for a third movie. Because obviously, if that's how it was, this movie would still do good. End it with him getting broken out, and that's just the end of the movie. Leave it on a cliffhanger. Who cares? At least make this movie worth watching enough to make a third movie. Because now if you make a third movie, I don't even know if I'm going to watch it. I mean, I probably will because this is a YouTube channel where I review movies, so I'm going to watch even bad movies. But I feel like you're going to lose a lot of audience members because this movie was so bad, they're not going to want to see what kind of crap you make later. So I think you did honestly a pretty bad job here, especially since you had the experience by making and directing and writing the first movie. So I don't know how you can go from there to here, but you did. And the 10th essential aspect is time. Will this movie stand the test of time? No, it will not stand the test of time. I feel like the only reason it would is because they want people that are watching the first movie for the first time want to see the sequel that they will think is good until they realize that it's not. As a standalone movie, it will not stand the test of time. I will probably never rewatch this movie. I will rewatch the first one plenty of times. I will never rewatch this movie. There is no reason for me to go through that again. So, yeah, it does not stand the test of time, and I don't think it ever will. Now, onto the reviews. These reviews do not surprise me. So, Rotten Tomatoes critics give it a 33%, Rotten Tomatoes audience gave it a 31%, and IMDb gave it a 53%. Now, as much as this movie is terrible, I really don't think it belongs in the 30s. So I'm just going to get those two out of there. I feel like it belongs in the 40s, maybe the low 50s, like IMDb is saying. But I really think it deserves to be in that 40s because it has some parts that are good and salvageable, but not many. Most of the movie is not. But the few parts that are, I have to at least respect that it got me at least a little invested in this movie before it shut it all down. So I'd say in the mid to upper 40s, maybe lower 50s. That's just the range I'm going with. And finally, the rankings. Where will Joker Folie Deux rank in its year, decade, and in all time? Let's find out starting in 2024. It's going to be 8th, right above Borderlands and below Ricky Stenicki. Now, Borderlands had one redeeming quality, and that was the visuals. Joker at least had a few things that caught my attention that actually made it salvageable. But both movies have a lot to work with. They have a lot to work on. It's just not much is there. Really, a few things to pick out of it that really need to be looked at. So I'm just basing off that Joker 2 is going to be above it just because more redeeming qualities than Borderlands. And it's below Ricky Stenicki because even though Ricky Stenicki wasn't the best movie, definitely some parts that I really hated. At least I thought the concept was interesting. Some of the acting was good. Some of the jokes were okay. And the overall ending I liked. So it has all of these pluses that Joker misses out on. Joker sure had pretty good acting. There was a lot of stuff I wanted to get rid of it, and the ending was terrible. So it's just, I feel like that one was more clear than Borderlands. I feel like Joker 2 is 100% closer to Borderlands than it is to Ricky Stenicki. And in the 2020s, it's going to be ninth, above The New Mutants and below Ricky Stenicki. Now, both The New Mutants and Joker 2 have the same problem where they only have a handful of things that are good about them. And I just feel like I was just more lost watching The New Mutants than watching Joker. At least it was clear what they were going for with Joker 2. And I was just more confused at The New Mutants. That's really the only reason separating them. I feel like these two are pretty close. I feel like, honestly, the plot, the way they did it is slightly better in The New Mutants. And then the ending is also weird, but at least it makes sense. I feel like Joker's ending didn't make sense. But if I take all the pieces and just compare them, I just have to say Joker wins by a hair. So that's really the only reason it's going to be above it. And I'm not going to explain why it's below Ricky Stenicki again, because I did previously. And now in all time, it's going to be 35th, above The New Mutants and below SWAT Firefight. I'm not going to explain why it's above The New Mutants again, since I just did. But below SWAT Firefight, it is by a mile. Because SWAT Firefight was a pretty good movie, other than some of the acting and other than the end. And that's the big thing is, if the movie doesn't have a good ending, it can really ruin the rest for you. Which is the problem SWAT Firefight did. Except the thing is, Joker did that as well, except Joker wasn't as good throughout the whole movie. I thought the concept was more interesting in SWAT Firefight, even though it was such a simple concept as literally a SWAT team going on a mission and then getting hunted. That's really the whole concept was, and I actually enjoyed it more than I did Joker 2. So this one was also not even close. It was, SWAT Firefight is clearly better than Joker 2, but I still have to say it. So either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. That's all I have. Oh my goodness. That's all I have for Joker Folie Dukes. If you guys enjoyed this review, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next. Did you guys hate this movie as much as I did? Because I absolutely hated it. It's also amplified due to the fact that I loved the first one so much and I was expecting way more out of Todd Phillips. But either way, I hope you guys have an amazing day. Peace out.